And we are live. My name is Jeremy, and it's a great pleasure to be here with the S Group. Rob Hersoff, who is going to take over from me.
And not permanently. So I'd love to welcome a great friend from my 25 years in England, Jeremy Clarkson. Jeremy,
Good
welcome.
Afternoon, everyone, or morning, or wherever it is, wherever you are.
Well, you're sort of half in South Africa, half in England, and they have an expression.
It's just South Africa and English. Good afternoon, then, to everybody.
Exactly. But there's an expression for the people who have one leg in each country, and it's called soat peel. We're called soties. It means salt dick, because, you know, legs in one, legs in the other, and you know what in the ocean.
Yeah, but do you know why that's? Do you know why that's the case?
Well, not much ocean. There isn't much ocean between. There's a bit of Mediterranean, and that's about it.
So, Jeremy, my wife has watched every one of your shows. She doesn't actually like cars or driving. How does that happen? So many women are like, "Oh my God, he's my hero."
I have no idea. I mean, they did some sums when I was on Top Gear that said nearly half the audience was women. And I think it's really because, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that there's no such thing really anymore as family viewing. So this was something where the little boy in the family would say, if you take a nuclear family, the little boy would say, "Oh, I really want to watch that. It's got lots of Lamborghinis on it." And then the father would go, "Well, I quite want to watch that as well." And then the daughter of the family would go, "I quite fancy Richard Hammond." And then the mother would come in and go, "I don't care what the bloody hell they're watching. The whole family's together, so I'll join in." So it became quite a big family thing. I mean, South Africa was one of the biggest audiences we had, really. And here, and in the UK. And I think that's really where it stems from. It's actually a relief that there's almost nothing about cars in it.
So it's sort of chrome and hot leather sex appeal, really.
I've no idea what it was. It became more of a sort of buddy show, I think, still is. I mean, we've just got back from filming a new episode of the Grand Tour in Scotland. And we still work together just as well now as we ever did 20 years ago.
So it's got to be a sad thing for what's coming, driverless cars and, you know, AI-driven cars. It has to be a sad thing.
Well, you know, I mean, a lot of people bought Nissans and G-Whizzes and Peugeots and, you know, cars that weren't interesting in the past. And there were still plenty of people who did find cars interesting, and they will continue to find cars interesting. So if half the world's population wants to go off and be chauffeured around in an electronic driverless car, well, then that's fine. But that's not going to stop me wanting to drive around in a 1968 Alfa Romeo. And
well, I was going to ask you, what car would it be? And there you go, 68
Well,
Alfa.
it's funny. I went down to a little tiny, weeny company called Alfaholics, based out of Weston-super-Mare near Bristol, the other day, and they restore Alfa Romeos, I mean, absolutely beautifully. And these guys, I mean, these are very expensive. They're £200,000 or £300,000. Well, £200,000. These guys were saying, you know, people are getting fed up with Ferraris and Lamborghinis and McLarens and so on these days. They're too fast, they're too big, they're too unnecessary. And they'd much rather drive something pretty from the 60s that's been made modern. And I drove one of their cars, and I just thought, well, this is it. This is as good a thing as I've ever driven. I absolutely fell in love with it. But it was £220,000, which is a lot. So I still think there'll still be petrol heads, and they'll still be able to drive petrol-powered cars. They might get sneered at, but we'll still be able to do it.
There's a buddy of mine in Cape Town. He's got quite a big business, and he turns 60s vehicles into electric vehicles and zooms around in those. You know, amazing.
It is amazing. The only problem, of course, when you do that is if you remove the engine noise and the exhaust noise, all you can hear is the creaking of the bodywork and the wind noise, which is considerable in a 1960s car.
You know, a friend of mine went to that E Formula One, and he said it's the most dangerous thing in the world because he was crossing the track and he couldn't hear anything coming. It's bloody dangerous.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think cars these days, electric cars, are being forced to have noise-generating equipment on them, so that they're not. But they aren't completely silent. I mean, 80% of the noise a car makes when it's going down the motorway is from the tyres, and electric cars still have those. They still make just as much of a racket as petrol cars. I mean, I hate electric cars. I vowed I will never have one, and I never will. I'll never have. I absolutely loathe them. I loathe the characteristics. I loathe the people who have them. I'm going to have a Tesla drive when I get my house built. They said to me the other day, I'm building a house, do I want to put an electric car charging point? No, I bloody don't. People come around and say, can I borrow some petrol? They're not borrowing any electricity either. I'm too Yorkshire for that.
I mean, other than coming back from a boozy dinner, do you ever let anyone drive you?
Yeah, I've got a driver.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I haven't driven a car in years. No, but the truth of the matter in the UK, as I'm sure you know, it's nigh on impossible these days to keep a clean license. And the one thing I can't afford to do is lose my driving license. So for the business, say this afternoon, of driving into London, there's no way I'm going to do that, because there's a strong chance I'll get 6 points. Do that twice and you lose your license, and then I'm in a world of pain. So no, for simple, boring driving, I'd get someone to drive me.
So my wife was reading something about your expeditions up in Scotland and saying that Nicola Sturgeon is making life particularly difficult for you.
Well, just for the English. She's the only politician. Well, if you think about it, you look at, I mean, I don't want to single anywhere out, African politicians, it's relatively easy to see what their motivation is. Donald Trump is a businessman. You can see what his motivation is. You can always, what Boris Johnson's motivation is. And they're classic politician motivations. But Nicola Sturgeon seems to wake up every morning and just think, how can I make life worse for the English? Every politicians on earth who simply, they are driven only by their hatred of one other nation.
Well, our country is going into the abyss because
since you never mentioned it.
We got it. I know. Well, I mean, the BBC doesn't say a word. We got terrible things. Terrible things.
I'm staggered by how little coverage South Africa's problems are getting in the world stage. I mean, it used to be the case that the BBC only maintained 4 foreign correspondents, one of whom was in Johannesburg, and I think that no longer applies. So now it's just Washington, which means the only foreign news we ever get is from the White House. Well, they don't even cover California, so God knows. I mean, South Africa, I get it from friends of mine out there, mainly Denzel, policeman in Pretoria, who keeps me up to speed with what's going on. But it sounds awful out there.
Yeah. When last were you down here?
It's been a while. And it's weird because I did a calculation when I was bored the other day as to which foreign city I've been to more than any other, and it's Johannesburg, more than New York.
Not Cape Town.
Not Cape. No, I've only been to Cape Town 4 or 5 times. I've been to Johannesburg 17 times now. So, and then Durban a lot of times as well. But no, it's always Johannesburg. It was a really easy place for us to film because you just say now health and safety, and people look at you, gone out, and go, what do you mean health and safety?
Just watch out for the bullets.
Yes, there is no health and safety. How high can we drop this car from? As high as you want. How far can we jump? Whatever you want. You could just do anything you wanted there, and it just made life for us incredibly easy.
Did you do that race track with the Johannesburg taxi? Was that one of yours?
I have driven a taxi, but it was for a promotional thing for something else I was doing. But I don't think I've ever driven one on television. I mean, you get into a world of pain if you said anything about a taxi on the BBC or indeed on Amazon. So, because you'd have to go into the whole social history of taxis, which actually very few people outside South Africa understand, but which I always think they're very clean, well-driven, well-maintained vehicles. It's always a good way of getting my South African friends to jump up and down and go berserk when I say that. But
well, I'm going to send you some things that are going on here, which some will be quite disturbing, but we're really feeling a bit isolated, so it's quite worrying.
No, I mean I have a friend who's moved into the centre of Johannesburg because he felt unsafe out in the sticks, out in the cradle. And when you think, you probably know who I mean, but I mean that's pretty terrifying. The stories I'm hearing from out there are scary as hell.
So I want to ask a serious question, and then I'm going to invite a guest to come and say hi, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
He's been incredibly generous. Charlie Daniel wants to know, he works with me in London, Formula One. Is it a goner? Can it be improved? Can it be changed? If you were the head of
It can
Formula
be
One,
improved. Oh, God, it couldn't be improved.
how would you do it? You're the new Bernie.
Sorry?
You're the new
Bernie's gone now. No, it can be improved. You just have, you need a dictator. You need somebody like Bernie to run it. I mean, there's a number of things they can do with the cars, but which the big teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, don't want to do. But they're just going to have to, because a dictator will wave a machine gun around in the meetings and just explain he'll unload the lot of it if they don't just do as they're told. They've got to be stronger. You've got to get rid of the stewards. I mean, at the moment, when the driver takes a minor risk, he could have the race taken away. I mean, literally, a 10-second penalty would cost you the race. No, you should be penalised for not taking a risk. If you haven't had an accident at some point in the race, you haven't been trying hard enough. And this, if you're going to have stewards, they should be looking at that. What do you mean you didn't hit anyone? Nobody wants to see a race where nothing happens. And when they say on the radio to Lewis Hamilton at the end, say, oh, you managed your tyres brilliantly, who gives a shit? I don't watch a man managing his tyres on a Sunday afternoon. So no, it can be fixed, and it should be fixed. It's just in a terrible parlous state at the moment.
So I'm going to introduce you to Charles Jacobs. Charles is a new friend of mine, and he's been immensely generous. And Charles, I'm not letting you get away with this, but I turned 60 on Friday, as you can tell, and had a big weekend. And he, as my birthday present on Friday, gave a large amount of money to a very important charity, and it was a large amount of money. And so, Charles, I'm punishing you. You're coming on, and you've got 10 minutes to be beaten up by Jeremy, or vice versa.
Well, he's there. There he is. I can see you. Hi, Charles.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, good. How are you?
All right, thank you. Great pleasure to meet you. Similarly to Rob's wife, I haven't missed one episode of Grand Tour or Top Gear. So great fan, and must just tell you that at one stage in South Africa, the repeats would show at about 10 to 10 at night, which was my bedtime. And when the repeat started, I was in a relationship for a very long time. And at that stage, I'd already started outsourcing my sexual activities. So it was almost like my little safety blanket. And at 10 to 10 at night, switch on Top Gear. And there was no better way to know that it's going to be a good tomorrow by watching you guys just being you.
Cocking about.
Awesome. So I've got a couple of questions, and I want to thank Rob for giving me this opportunity. I think it's actually very cool chatting to you. My mates and I, who are of similar interests to you and your mates, often wish we had your jobs.
We get paid for doing it. That's the extraordinary thing.
Yeah, so we simulate a lot of the challenges that you guys have, and really try and test ourselves, possibly physically.
So did you get stuck in the Macadie caddy then? Go
on. No, because I drove a proper car, so I didn't have to get stuck. But yeah, so my questions are really, I think, a little bit more about the human factor behind the show. And it would be, for you, what came first, your love for journalism or your love for cars?
Well, I could say Maserati before I could say mummy. So I loved cars from when I was 2, and then loved them all the way through to 13, and then didn't really love them because I had more important things on my mind. And then loved them again when I started driving them. So when I was 17, and then I went off to as a journalist at 18. And then when I had the brainwave one day, sitting at a set of traffic lights, that I could write about cars. And I thought, well, that's great, because I actually really do like writing, and I really do like cars. And here we are now. It's been a bit like being in when you work in a chocolate factory and they say you can eat as many chocolates as you like, because they know full well after a week, we're going to nick another one. So there's an element of that, and it's very rare now that a car comes along that excites me, but I love it when it does. The Mini I had last week, the new John Cooper Works GP, Jesus God, I was like, yes, they've made an exciting car, and I drove it everywhere. I couldn't get me out of it. So it's just great fun, and I look forward just as much to driving this as I do writing about it. So yeah, it's not really which came first. It was just the being able to combine the two that was such a thrill.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, more of a statement and then possibly into a question is the friendship between you, Richard, and James. It's three complete different personalities.
Yeah,
that
very,
kind of
very different.
That kind of got a common interest, and it taught me, certainly in my opinion, and I'm sure it influenced other people, how different personalities can actually have such a good bond and accept each other for their differences. I mean, you guys had some real fights. There were some real arguments.
We still do.
And obviously some real joys. Is the friendship real? I mean, is it the chemistry we see on screen? Is that what it's really about?
I mean, what people I think are always very surprised to hear is, away from work, we never ever see each other, not on purpose. I bumped into Richard Hammond during lockdown when I went to London, and it was completely deserted. I mean, there wasn't a soul moving on the streets. And I was taking a picture because I thought, no, there'll be a time when people won't remember this, and it'll be incredible. And there was one urchin shuffling along, and it was Richard Hammond ruining my picture, which was an incredible coincidence, and it was the first time I'd seen him in months. But as soon as we arrive on the first night of a shoot, it's as though, I think if you are good friends with someone, this always is the way. It's as though we saw each other yesterday morning. We just pick up and go into a groove. It's very hard for someone to come along and emulate on television, because it's after such a long time. I can say something and I know exactly what James May's going to say back before he said it, or Richard, and they would say the same of me.
You get that relationship in hostel as well, or being in army with guys, or, where there's just that. I mean, you don't see your mates for 15 years. You get to a reunion and it's the same bullshit. You've got small calves, you've got a big dick, look at your ears, maybe you should comb your eyebrows. It's that,
exactly.
which is awesome.
It is exactly. And I mean, we went, say the first night of the shoot in Scotland, we were quite late to bed. I think there's probably some COVID rule that said we had to be tucked up at 9:45, but I don't know. I can't remember what happened, but it was quite late, and we got a bit drunk and absolutely fell about laughing. And I haven't seen either of them for months. I mean, really a long time.
Very cool.
So
Rob,
it was,
sorry, I've got one more question. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, sure.
So you often spoke, and this might make you a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm sure it won't.
I'm sitting on a spike. Trust me, you won't make me feel uncomfortable.
So you often spoke about people you would avoid at dinner. Now we early in the show spoke about braais. So we've got this rule as well in South Africa, who you would avoid at a braai. And you often spoke with whom you would avoid sitting next to or at a dinner party, because he would bore you. So applying this analogy, who would be the person or guest that you've interviewed that you would actually like to sit next to at a dinner table?
Oh, well, the most incredible guest we ever had on was Ranulph Fiennes. It was the longest interview we ran. We ran it for 17 minutes, which was twice as long as anybody else's, because it's the matter of fact way he just sits and says, so then I saw my fingers off because they were annoying me. What? He was a great guest. But I mean, actually, I thought Tom Cruise was a good guest. Obviously, I thought Cameron Diaz was a good guest. But for the most interesting, you what?
I'm sure you did find Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz. And Kristen Scott Thomas. Obviously, I can't remember anything she said because I was just dripping with love. But yeah, she is extremely. I'm already getting my heart's twice as fast now because I just said her name. But Ranulph Fiennes was the most interesting and the person anyone would most want to sit next to. What he's done in his life beggars belief.
Conversely to that, who would you want to sit at the opposite side of the table?
Oh, I would never dream of being so disloyal as to say that somebody who came on the show wasn't perhaps as interesting. You just have to look at very short interviews, the ones that went at 6 minutes. And you kind of know, that's sick. I talk to them for maybe 30 minutes and we can only find 6 minutes of usable material. That's not a very interesting person. But when they're running at 17 minutes, that's someone Yeah.
So I have to ask
Well,
a question.
it is my time to go. Sorry, Rob. It is my time to go, or just be a viewer. And thank you, Rob, again for giving me the opportunity. Jeremy, awesome meeting you.
It's good to meet you.
I would love to
Get your
drink
haircut.
30. I will do. I'd love to drink a beer or 30 with you one day.
Are you Cape Town or Joburg?
I'm Cape Town.
You're Cape Town. Oh well, next time I'm down there, which won't be very long. We're fairly sure of that. I'll look you all up.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Jeremy,
very awesome meeting you.
In addition to Charles, you've got a hell of a lot of friends on here who will entertain you royally. So I'd encourage you to come down. But if I chose Hugh Grant to throw a punch at, who would you choose? Someone new.
Well, Nicola Sturgeon's up there, the First Minister of Scotland, although hitting a small ginger woman's probably deemed to be bullying. She is driving me completely mad. She's just an irrational woman, a person. She just happens to be a woman, but she's driving me bonkers. Every time she opens her mouth, I just want to throw a brick at her. Yeah, so she's pretty terrible. I had a big row with my very woke daughter the other day, who seems to think that Donald Trump is worse. Well, yeah, he's a narcissist and a mentalist, but he's not driven by a hatred of another country. Well, probably China. Yeah, so I don't know. Nicola Sturgeon will be up there. You've got Hugh Grant, have you?
Yeah, he really irritates the hell out of me. He used to be invited to the Dunhill Golf, but he's been canned.
Well, I mean, we used to have a rudeness, lateness, and entourage chart when we ran Top Gear. So it was who was the rudest person we had, not on TV, but behind the scenes. Who had the biggest entourage and who was the latest? And Jordan, the sort of pneumatically enhanced supermodel, had the biggest entourage. I mean, she turned up with and now she's bankrupt and can't work out why. But she had like 50 people working for her. Hugh Grant won the Rudeness Award, although he was perfectly charming to me. Apparently, he was quite dismissive of some of the members of staff. And then David Dimbleby weirdly won the Lateness Award because he forgot to come. Surprise.
What did you do? Did you chat?
We got Damon Hill, who lived around the corner, to stand in. We rang him up and said, are you, and he went, am I what? We're coming to Top Gear. Oh, God, I'm completely forgotten. That's awfully sorry. So that was a bit of, yeah, so he came 2 weeks later. So he was 2 weeks late. But we did have charts like that, yeah.
Now, Jeremy, there's a rumor that you might prefer tractors to cars. And somebody said to ask you about the economics of farming. I have no idea why.
The economics of farming are very, very simple. It's really, really gloomy. Yeah, no, I spent the last year mostly driving tractors. Well, a tractor, my tractor, which of course is a Lamborghini, obviously. Yeah, so I'm trying to learn how to do farming. But I think I've left it because I'm like you, I'm 60 now. So although my 60th birthday party was April, so couldn't really see anyone or do anything.
Did you get it in time?
No, it was in April. That was it. There was children came over. We sat in my half-built house. It was a beautiful day. Got shit-faced, and that was that. It was actually a fantastic birthday.
So we get bus passes, is that right? You and I, we're like senior citizens or something ridiculous.
Do I get a bus pass? I get a bus pass now in the UK. That'd be hilarious because I've never been on a bus. No, that's not strictly true. My mother took me on a bus when I was 8, and I asked her in a loud voice why it kept stopping. And then I asked her, would it go all the way up my grandfather's drive or stop at the end? And then I was absolutely baffled when she said, no, it didn't even go down the road he lives on. I was, well, how am I going to get there? She said, we'll have to walk. What? Yeah. Anyway, luckily he'd sent his chauffeur and Bentley to pick us up. So that was
the magic one.
Hold on, say that again.
So I've turned 60 and I still haven't worked out what career I'm going to do in my life, but I'm going to get there soon. But if you could do the show of shows, obviously unlimited budget, what would it be? What's the ultimate show that you would produce, direct, star in?
I mean, honestly, I can't think of a show I'd rather be on than the Grand Tour. And I'm bound to say that. But if you look at everything else, I mean, excluding drama, or you're a newsreader, I suppose I'd quite like to be on YouPorn.
Yeah, so would I.
But I can't. Well, I mean, David Attenborough going and crawling around with gorillas. No. Country File. Oh, I wish I could build that wall and boil a hope. No. Cooking programs, not interested. Dancing Street, no. Talent show, no. But a program where they say go and drive a Lancia Beta across the Makati, or how about rebuilding a PBR and driving down the Mekong in Cambodia and Vietnam as fast as you like, and don't worry, we'll meet the cost of building it and film you. We can give you an amazing holiday video, which everyone can watch. Because normally when you say to someone, do you want to watch my holiday videos? They say no, but really people do want to see mine. So yeah, no, I think that's about as good a show as I could think of hosting, really.
Because I think I must have finished YouPorn in lockdown. Are they doing a YouPorn too?
Yeah, no, there's quite a lot, as it turns out. There's quite a lot of porn sites but it's a long way to work through. But now by July, I'd watched all the porn on the internet, and no one seemed to be making any more. So that was a bit of a disaster. I had to start watching Amazon and Netflix then.
Well, the question I'm not going to ask you is which category do you go into in Pornhub?
No, you don't. Well, you can ask.
Don't answer that. Everyone gives a sort of innocent one like MILFs, but it really isn't that one, is it?
No, it's nobody's put MILF into a search engine for 20 years.
That's the one you use when you want to get out of trouble. Yeah.
Is it? Okay, there you go. I'll bear that in mind. I'll go and write it on my search history.
No, go into the incognito tab. I've been taught that one too. So Jeremy, how can we help you? You've probably got close to 1,000 fans, supporters, most of whom are decision makers and have a lot of money. So other than sending money to your charity, is there anything that people should be doing, thinking, watching, eating, breathing?
What, the people watching now? Or, sorry, I didn't quite get the beginning of that question.
Watching now. Anything
people watching now, they should be, what do you suggest? Sorry, if you just fire the question at me again, it went a bit twangy.
We've got many hundreds of people, all invitation only, on this, mainly South African, UK, and South Africans abroad. And most of them are very successful entrepreneurs, business builders. Give them a thought or something they should be doing, or a new idea, or something to watch that they've missed. What's it?
Just watch on TV or
anyway, like everyone's saying, My Octopus Teacher, this wonderful little documentary from the Cape of a man and an octopus.
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it. So on TV, I'll tell you what I've got really into, and it was recommended to me by Andrew Lloyd Webber. That's a big name drop for you. And his wife and some friends of theirs. And they said, no, you'll love it. It's subtitled and set in post-war Sweden in a restaurant. Well, I'm completely captured. It's called The Restaurant. It's fantastic because what it is it's Dallas, but with lesbianism.
Fantastic.
So it's that's a fantastic show to watch. And talking of that, do you remember the Second World War, the German thing that was made called Das Boot? Did you ever see that?
Brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, they've remade it for TV, and they've obviously thought you can't really cock up with a submarine movie, and that's really true. You've got Hunt for Red October or Crimson Tide or countless others, and they're all pretty good as a general rule. Morning Departure, and going way back when. And they thought, right, we'll turn Das Boot into a series and remake it. And they thought that'll get every man. What else could we do to keep the men watching happy? But we could do some lesbian sex. Well, that's pretty hard to shoehorn lesbianism into a U-boat drama, but they've done it. It's extraordinary. They've actually managed to get it in there. It's actually, to be honest, it's fairly terrible, but as a thing. But The Restaurant is the thing I've been. I mean, there was another thing called Sense8, which was fabulous.
Fabulous. Did they do season 2? It was brilliant.
They did it, and then they never finished it. And there was such an outcry that they were forced to go and make the last program to wrap it all up. I thought that was a really good show, Sense8. It's probably the best I saw in lockdown.
I think it's brilliant. I agree with them. Occupied, the one about Norway, is brilliant. But my quick question to you...
I've heard about Occupied. I want to see Occupied.
On the Swedish one, were both lesbians attractive?
No, you see, that's because they're Swedes, and they're quite right on. They made one of them a bit of a munter. So it's not. She's not a proper lesbian. You know, she's not in stockings and suspenders like that. All proper lesbians are. She's actually she's like a pretend lesbian. But no, it's better than nothing. It's better than no lesbian. But it's a damn good series because it's like having Dallas back. You've got a mother, you've got 3 children. They've all got partners. They all don't get on. There's a disjointed baddie. Cliff Barnes basically elsewhere in the scene. It's just all there. It's brilliant, really brilliant. And I love Dallas, so it's good to have that back.
But it's amazing how Netflix has come onto its own. I mean, all the good series we've all watched. Did you watch Game of Thrones? You must have.
Yeah, of course. I'm just disappointed as anybody else by season 8 because it just fizzled out. We were all expecting the battle of battles and we got nothing. Well, just talking.
Which character were you?
Oh, is everyone supposed to be a character in that?
Well, you must have a favorite.
I was the spider in Khaleesi's bedroom, I think.
Okay, well, my wife's Khaleesi, so there we go. You're in trouble.
No, Khaleesi and her, what was the girl called who was her maiden? She was also, I don't think necessarily she was me. Who would I have been? I suppose something major in Lannister, but no, well, I'm chopping off. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. So I know everyone's a character from Winnie the Pooh. That's more important. It's who are you from Winnie the Pooh?
Well, I have to be Tigger.
Yeah, I'm Tigger. So yeah. And then Richard Hammond, James May is Eeyore, and Richard Hammond, as we know, is Piglet.
Eeyore, I loved Eeyore.
He is Eeyore. He is. Oh, well, I don't suppose anything will work today.
So, Jeremy, do you know what a pair of Feltskins are? Feltskinner.
What's that?
Forgive me if you don't. Felt is bush, skun is shoe. So the Boer, the farmers, used to wear very rough-made leather shoes. And for being a guest on our show, we send you a pair of Feltskins.
Oh, fantastic.
We have them without socks, but you can choose what color lace you have. And it goes from brown to green to pink to red, whatever you want. So you can get to choose your color of your Feltskins.
Oh, so cornflower blue in one and pink in the other. That would be a look.
Done. Yes, you can.
Perfect. And then I can tromp about in the fields in them.
Yeah, you're a Boer, which means farmer in South African. So there we go.
Yeah, exactly. Is that what I didn't know Boer meant? That's farmer, is it?
Yeah. Boer means
so it was actually the farmer war that we're involved. That doesn't sound quite so dramatic.
Well, it sounds pretty unfair, doesn't it? But
yeah, I suppose so.
The interesting thing, having fought the Boers in 2 wars, they love the Brits. The Brits are much loved in South Africa by both the English here and the Boers, the Afrikaners, and respected.
Well, I thought the Boers all went on their ox carts and fled.
No, the ox carts was before the Boer War.
Oh, okay, that was people fleeing in advance of the war, I see. No, I've never, I don't really have any trouble with anyone in South Africa, really. It's one of the few places on earth where the English aren't universally hated.
Oh, you're universally loved, actually. And interestingly, it's very sad because a lot of our young, talented, educated university kids are all going overseas, and destination number 1 is Britain. And the High Commissioner here said there are more applications per capita for British passports in South Africa than any other country in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to do that thing that the Prime Minister of New Zealand said when they had a similar problem with people leaving New Zealand and going to Australia, when he said that it increases the average IQ of both countries.
Yeah. Brilliant.
That's very clever.
My wife's a Kiwi. Yeah.
Well,
Jeremy, thank you so much. I mean, you are much hell of a lot of fans, and you now have a lot of braais to come to when you come to South Africa.
Oh, yeah, no, well, I like a braai. Love a braai. Well, I'll be down there as soon as I possibly can. I'll give you a shout.
Lovely. Can't wait to see you. Thanks again.
All right, see you, Rob. Bye-bye.